Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sotonye Afiesimama and this is Today in History. So it's the 4th of July and on this day in 1054 the brightest known supernova SN 1054 creates the Crab Nebula. So this was first reported by Chinese astronomers and remained visible for 2 years. References to it are also found in a later 13th century Japanese document and in a document from the Arab world. So that's the SN 1054, the brightest known supernova, reported on this day in the year 1054. Let's move on now to the year 1610. So a few centuries later, we have the Battle of Klushino. So King Sigismund III's Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth army beats Russia and Sweden. This was part of Russia's famous time of troubles for Russia. So this happened on this day in 1610. We move on to the year 1776 and citizens of the United States celebrate their independence today. Well, that declaration was made, like I mentioned earlier, on this day in 1776. So July 4th, 1776. So happy independence, America. Happy independence from the British. So 1776 was the day. July 4th, as you can see here in this picture, was the date. Let's move on to the year 1782. So 6 years later, in the former colony of the United Kingdom, this man, William Petty, becomes British Prime Minister following the death of Charles Watson-Wentworth. 1785, James Hutton, geologist, publicly reads an abstract of his theory of uniformitarianism for the first time at the meeting of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. The concept that the Earth's surface was shaped in the past by gradual processes such as erosion and by small sudden changes such as earthquakes of the type acting today rather than by the sudden divine acts such as the flood survived by Noah in the Genesis recount, Genesis chapter 6 to 8, demanded by the doctrine of catastrophism. Okay, so essentially he was against the doctrine of catastrophism as he saw mentioned in the Bible book of Genesis. Well, my own argument would be earthquakes could also be seen as catastrophism as well. So his own thought process or his theory of uniformitarianism included the fact that earthquakes were not part of the doctrine of catastrophism. I would beg to differ on that note. So he can't say earthquakes are not catastrophic. And then he says in it says the flood of Noah's day was catastrophic. Yes, it was, but things returned back to normal, didn't they? Same as earthquakes, things eventually returned back to normal. Anyway, that's my argument. I don't know much about these things. What do I know? But anyway, so that was his own theory of uniformitarianism. Things change gradually over time, which I agree, but you also have catastrophic incidents over time as well, which shapes things suddenly, and then things get back to normal for 99.9% of the time. That's life, isn't it? Anyway, like I said, I'm not an expert in these things, but I'm speaking from my observations of nature as well and reading about stuff that has happened over the years. 1803, on this day, the Louisiana Purchase is announced to the American people by President Thomas Jefferson. 1826, past presidents Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both die on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. President John Quincy Adams calls, in quotes, visible and palpable remarks of divine favor. So he felt that the fact that two presidents die on the same day, which happened to be July 4th, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, was some sort of divine favor. Well, that's interesting. It says it's a visible and palpable mark of divine favor. In 1827, slavery was abolished in New York on this day. 1862. What happened in 1862 on this day? Charles Dodgson, whose pen name was Lewis Carroll, creates this adventure, Alice in Wonderland. So Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was created on this day for Alice Liddell on a family boat trip on the River Isis, which is now called the Thames in Oxford. It eventually got published exactly 3 years later on this day. 1863, Boise, Idaho was founded on this day. It's now capital of Idaho. 1879, the Afrikaner Union was formed by, formed by Reverend S.J. Dutoit. So Toit is spelled T-O-I-T. I presume that it's pronounced Toit or Toit. The Cape of Good Hope, also known as the Cape Colony, in Dutch is called Cap Colony, K-A-A-P, K-O-L-O-N-I-E, was a British colony in present-day South Africa. Named after the Cape of Good Hope, the British colony was preceded by an earlier Dutch colony of the same name, the Cap de Good Hope, established in 1652 by the Dutch East India Company. As stated by Buchenhagen, the Afrikaner Bond was established for, in quote, and I quote, the states of South Africa to be federated in one independent republic, end of quote, free from British imperialism. However, the Cape Colony branch of the Bond was less extreme in its republicanism and more inclined to cohabit with indirect British rule. The Afrikaner Bond, as established in 1881, claimed to represent all those who considered Africa to be their home rather than Europe. The so-defined Afrikanders, in quotes, were predominantly white farmers of Dutch extraction, though the initial bond was explicitly defined as a non-racial organization open to people of all races. Its stated aim was to advance, in quote, Afrikaner interest from the Cape to the Limpopo River. Interesting history. Interesting. 1879, on this day, Battle of Ulundi, Lord Chelmsford beats Zulu King Cetshwayo. 1881, back to this photograph, Booker T. Washington established Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, located in Tuskegee, Alabama. The school was led by a young 25-year-old Washington, who guided the new students in building a school to provide educators for training African Americans throughout the South. 1887, on this day, future founder of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, begins his studies at Sindh Madrasatul Islam University in Karachi. 1973, on this day, CARICOM, the Caribbean Community and Common Market, was formed. This famous film, Raid on Entebbe. These are some of the actors and actresses, and I'm going to show a bit more of. So I read a bit about this. The Raid on Entebbe happened on this day, July 4th, interestingly America's Independence Day as well. became Independence Day for those who survived this raid. So it was a courageous commando raid that rescued hijacked hostages. The plane departing Tel Aviv is hijacked and lands in Uganda, where Palestinian terrorists threaten to kill passengers unless demands are met. Under cover of darkness, Israeli commandos rush the airport and rescue most of the hostages in a 90-minute lightning raid. Operation Entebbe at Uganda's Entebbe Airport was the name of this raid. On this day, the current Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, lost his brother. His brother's name was Yoni Netanyahu, pictured here. So this is the actor, Stephen March, who played Yoni Netanyahu, as you can see from this, my cursor. I'll carry on. Yonatan or Yoni Netanyahu was an Israeli Defense Forces officer who commanded the elite commando unit, which was called Seyeret Matkal during this operation. The mission was successful, with 102 of the 106 hostages rescued. But like I said earlier, Netanyahu was killed in action. He was the only IDF, so only member of the Israeli Defense Forces, who was killed during this operation. So that's the guy who played Netanyahu's brother in the raid on Entebbe. And keep an eye on this guy, because I'm going to play a video later. Let's go a bit more. So Yaphet Kotto acted as President Idi Amin. He did a very good job. One thing I remember from this film was the phrase, "One thing I want to tell you," very important. He kept saying that over and over again, but he was an excellent actor. And then Charles Bronson, you're going to see a video clip of him now in the movie. Very good actor as well. And you've got Peter Finch, Yitzhak Rabin. He acted as Yitzhak Rabin, who was a former president of Israel who was assassinated some years ago. You can Google it up. So yeah, that's on the raid of Entebbe for now. 2006, on this day, Richard Branson sells Virgin Mobile to NTL for £962.4 million sterling. On this day in 2019, I'll show you what happened. This bust of 3,000-year-old, or the 3,000-year-old bust of Tutankhamun, or Tutankhamen, or King Tut for short, was stolen and sells for $6 million at auction at Christie's. Christie's is an auction house located in London. They may have offices all over the world, but the head office is in London. Tutankhamun restored the ancient Egyptian religion. So this is just a bit about Tutankhamun. After its dissolution by his father, enriched and endowed the priestly orders of two important cults, and began restoring old monuments damaged during the previous Amarna period. He moved his father's remains to the Valley of the Kings, as well as moving the capital from Akhenaten to Thebes. Tutankhamun was physically disabled with a deformity of his left foot, along with bone necrosis that required the use of a crane, several of which were found in his tomb, as well as body armor and bows, having been trained in archery. He had other health issues, including scoliosis, and had contracted several strains of malaria. So that's King Tut for you, whose bust was reported stolen on this day, but eventually sold for $6 million. I wonder if it was recovered. Anyway, so we'll go back to the video which I promised, and look out for Charles Bronson in that video. So this, and you know, the reason I'm playing this video is because of the song from this movie, which I remember till this day. I watched this film as a kid, must have been the early 80s, you know. So Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to play it now. I guess it's a song of victory. How's Charles Bronson for you? Must have been an emotional day, you know. All the hostages, well, 3 hostages died, plus the Netanyahu's brother, who was a commander of the IDF. On that note, guys, we end it. It's today in history for the 4th of July. My apologies for some of the errors there. I hope you join me tomorrow for Today in History. Do not forget to give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and also subscribe by clicking the notification bell so that you get notified of my video uploads. Thanks again, guys. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.